online who would like to do that? Is there anyone who would like to use a public comment period? Then we will call the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners meeting of Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. We will call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will move on to the consent agenda. Approve the November 2nd, 2021 County Board minutes. Proclaim November 17th, 2021 Geographic Information Systems Day. Approve Minnesota Child and Teen Checkups Outreach Contract Amendment. Renew Southeastern Minnesota Recyclers Exchange Agreement. Renew Southeastern Minnesota Recyclers Exchange Fiscal Management Agreement. Approve 2021 to 2022 Public Health Fees and Contract Rates. Approve Tax Forfeiture Land Auction. Approve Tax Forfeiture Class Price and Sale. Approve the final plat for Mayo Woodlands 3rd. Establish a public hearing date to discuss the 2022 to 2026 Capital Improvement Plan and authorize the issuance of Capital Improvement Plan bonds. Review and adopt the Olmsted County Emergency Operations Plan.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. We move on now to the regular agenda. The first one is to approve the resolution as required by the Tax, Equity, and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982, TEFRA, for the Olmsted Housing and Redevelopment Authority public hearing on November 16th, 2021, on the proposal that the authority issue its $3,650,000 lease revenue refunding bonds, Series 2021A. Is Anita going to talk about that, or Wilfredo? Anyone?
No.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. No additional discussion needed unless you want to. We had the public hearing earlier today with the public with the HRA. Also, the HRA already approved their counterpart resolution, so you just need to review this and approve this one.
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Secondly, then allow reimbursement for future bond issue. Cami.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cami Iverson, Physical Development Finance Controller. We plan to issue some capital improvement bonds in the near future, and most likely some of our departments are going to start some of these projects that we're intending on issuing bonds for soon before we issue the bonds. So we have to have a reimbursement resolution approved by the board. So after we've started the projects, we can reimburse ourselves. So we just ask for your approval on that, and we have listed some of the potential projects that we could be using them on.
Any questions or discussion for Cami?
Move approval.
Seconded to allow reimbursement for future bond issue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Cami. And finally, to approve amendment to the National Park Service LawCon/Wolford grant agreement to remove grant restrictions from the Bierman House. Do we know what that is? And transfer of title to Bierman House property to Joe Powers.
To approve.
Carlos Carlin would like to.
Fireworks set up outside for this?
Yeah.
I have not been this excited to see you guys in a long time.
You're not the only one.
This is a long time coming. So, good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Carlin Ziegler, the Olmsted County Parks Director. Yeah, this has been a long time coming. So, very exciting day. We still have a little more work to do, but this is a huge, huge step today. So, I thought it was important to just really quickly give a little timeline of what the heck we've been through.
Where are you going to start?
We're going to start way back in 1854. The house itself, 1854, the site was settled and the house was constructed in the 1860s. Adolf Bierman bought it 15 to 20 years later, and he is obviously, for the namesake, the first prominent person to live in that home. So he was the county auditor and eventually became the state auditor. So he was a very prominent figure in that house from the start. Of course, the Mayos are connected to it. From 1907 to 1969, the Mayos were connected to that property. Dr. Charles Mayo acquired the Bierman farm and used it mostly as a family retreat until they moved to the country in the 1920s. They lived in the Bierman house when they first stayed on the property before building the Ivy house. And then the big house, which is now known as the Mayowood Mansion. And they moved into that residence in the 1920s. So it was Alice Mayo's parents, Chester and Lily Plank, that lived in the house for many years in the mid-1900s. And that is Lily Plank sitting in the living room of the Bierman house in 1963. So in 1979, Mayowood Enterprises sold the home to Olmsted County as part of what was known as a Phase 1 purchase of parkland. It was purchased for $120,000. That was half of the $222,000 for the purchase price of both that and the entire Mayowood corridor. The federal grant funding was used to purchase the land, which is where the restrictions on the property came from in the first place. And the property was to be used for outdoor recreational use. The rest of the Phase 2 and 3 purchases of parkland never came to fruition. So the Mayowood Mansion, or the Mayowood House, which is the Bierman House, sat adjacent but not connected to the parkland. So the outdoor recreational use at that point was very minimal, if any, and what was intended to be used as like a trailhead facility or caretaker house was never seen. So the Rochester City Parks now operates in the Mayowood acreage and the Mayowood corridor. They continued on their bike trail to connect bike trail systems. So although we own the Mayowood corridor, the Rochester City Parks actually manages and runs that area as part of their trail system. So in 2016, we continued to not have any outdoor recreational use for that house. It had been leased to many different people and through different agencies during that time, leading up until 2016, and that is when a 25-year lease had ended and it came back to the Parks Department. So at that point, we started trying to figure out what to do with this house, knowing that there really weren't a whole lot of options for outdoor recreational use, and the house had significant damage from a water main break in the house previously. So the county decided to put out the request for proposals, an RFP for anybody that was willing to fix up that house or do something different with the house. June 5th of 2018, 3.5 years ago, the request for proposals went out. Proposals were reviewed by both Power Ventures Incorporated and the City of Rochester Parks and Recreation. Both parties had interest in renovating the house and the historic property. The decision was made to pursue an agreement with Joe Powers and work through the conversion process so the property could be transferred to private ownership and go back onto tax rolls. So October 2nd, 2018, the county board approved the short-term property stabilization agreement with Joe Powers. And part of this terms and agreement, Mr. Powers agreed to pay $50,000 towards the consultant fees and the conversion process to get this done. We hired PVN, who is now New History, as our consultants to help us with the conversion process. And it was a Section 106 process. Being that there's a historical house on the site, there was many different components to this conversion. It was not a normal conversion by any means. And so we had to transfer the value of the Bierman House property to another piece of parkland so that those restrictions were remaining within the park system, but on a different piece of property. So in January 2nd, 2020, we purchased the Fisherman's Inn property. That was our replacement land for the Bierman House. It certainly exceeded the cost that we needed and the value of the house, and it did provide a lot of different recreational use and outdoor recreation to fulfill that grant. November 1st of 2021, the National Park Service approved the transfer of the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant restrictions from the Bierman House to the new Lake Zumbro property, which was formerly Fisherman's Inn. The approval letter is attached to your resolution as Exhibit B. So our action item at this point is the resolution attachment Exhibit C, which is requesting of your signatures to amend the grant agreement, acknowledging that the grant restrictions have now been transferred from the Bierman property to Lake Zumbro Park.
So move.
Second.
I thought Greg already did it.
I already made the
He
motion.
already made the motion. We need a second.
Drag it out a little for more.
We're gonna wait another 3 years to argue this one.
It hasn't gone on long enough. So,
Way too
been
early.
moved and seconded at least once.
Madam
to,
Chair,
Um,
I'm
yes,
sorry, there was
Mr.
a,
Connect.
I was gonna follow up with Carlin actually when she was done before you actually voted on this, because there's one other aspect to this we haven't really touched on.
Of
Oh, no.
course,
Oh,
of
no.
course
Oh,
there is.
no.
We're not taking any more aspects.
So we had a really long title on this because it's encompassing a lot of different items. The signatures on the grant agreement amendment is one of those pieces, but there are other items within the resolution that also need to be approved.
The aspect period has gone past, expired.
So like I said, this amendment, the conversion process itself has been a huge process, and it's taken many years, but we are finally to that point that we are allowed to transfer the property. However, we do have some mitigation through the State Historic Preservation Office due to the historic property itself. So we will be going through some more mitigation efforts once we transfer the property. We still have a little bit more work to do to mitigate the transfer from a historic property from public to a private ownership.
Does that mean Mr. Powers needs to use the same furniture we saw in the photo?
No, unfortunately, that furniture is no longer around. So he will have free reign to work with the Historic Preservation Office on his own terms after that. So our obligation to be filled with the SHPO is a level 1 historic property record. We're basically updating the National Historic Registry with the information that we have found through this process. And we also, just last week, we got professional photographs. The Bierman House, Miss Bierman had her little photo shoot. And we did photographic documentation of what the house looked like prior to leaving public domain. So all those photos have been taken, and we'll move through the rest of the process in the next few months. So copies to each of those updates and the historical photos will be distributed to several different agencies that have vested interest in the property moving forward. So now is where I come to Tom Command to come and fill you in a little bit more. So as we stand right now, the property title is clear of the grant restrictions and in position to transfer to Joe Powers. County Finance has determined that Joe Powers has in fact fulfilled his promise to reimburse the county of the $50,000 towards the conversion expenses to date. So your next action item and the follow-up to the first action item is authorizing the county board chair and administrator to sign the deed and closing documents prepared by the county attorney's office to transfer the Bierman House parcel once everything is complete with all the documents. So I'll hand it over to Tom if he has any additional information. We do have some loose ends to tie up, figure out with some of the property agreements. But I think we'll see that be coming to the county board soon as well. So.
Thanks, Carlin. Yeah, just one other aspect of this. It's not super important. It isn't going to cost the county anything more, but it became apparent, and I wanted to not only credit Carlin with all the great leadership and help she's provided with this project, but also Mark Sievertson from the county surveyor office has been a great help, and his staff as well. Wanted to acknowledge them. But if you look in your packet at page 79, in case you have that handy, there's a survey in there just so you can kind of better understand what's going on. On that page, you'll see in that survey, there's a shaded area on the southeast side of the Bierman House. Basically what happened is when the access road up to Mayowood Mansion was put in, part of that access road that Mayo owns and uses encroaches slightly onto the Bierman House property. So that shaded area is located basically between that dragon tooth fence that's alongside of the house and where our property line is in part way into the access road. So basically we're going to be we're going to be giving Mayo Clinic a access easement so that they can continue to use that shaded area, which is already paved and covered with a driveway right now as part of their access road. And then the other thing, if you look at the other side of the property on that same survey on page 79, you'll see that actually the Bierman House parcel doesn't actually touch the edge of Mayowood Lake. There's a 20, I believe, foot wide access. That's a secondary access that Mayo uses to get into the Mayowood Mansion property when they do construction work and renovation work. That's historically, apparently, because the dragon tooth fence blocks the entire southeastern boundary of the property. There's no way basically to get a car or a vehicle onto that property without using Mayo's secondary access, and it always been kind of just a handshake agreement. So as part of this, Mayo's also agreed that they're going to give us an access easement so that Joe and future owners of the property will basically have vehicular access on that side of the property to get in where they've historically always got in as a driveway. So I put that in the resolution. It hasn't really been, made very prominent, but I just wanted to make you sure that's just another one of the moving pieces that we're working on, trying to get this thing across the finish line. So, thank you.
Well, actually, the county board has initiated a brand new program. It's called the Award for Sheer Tenacity Beyond All Reason. And the first 3 recipients of this award are Joe Powers and Carlin Ziegler and Tom Canan. So this has been signed by the county board. It's very official. The Bierman House Award for Sheer Tenacity Beyond All Reason. We are so impressed with what you've done and accomplished and the job we left for you to do. So thank you all, and we're going to have actually a little celebration and reception. Oh, do we have to vote?
Yes.
Oh, see, my year's almost up, and then you won't have to go through this anymore. I'm sure Commissioner Tyne will have it all in hand.
That's a pretty big assumption that he's gonna be the chair.
So it's been.
Joe wants
to
speak.
Oh, Joe, would you like?
I thought I'd let you vote first.
Okay.
Just see if it's gonna go through on this.
So it's moved at least once and seconded at least once that we, let's see, accept or we approve the amendment. Is that what you'd like us to do, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. You want me to read it all?
You don't need to read it.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Aye. Any opposed?
There's a standing ovation.
Yes, it does.
I too want to just give my thanks to Tom Canan and Mark Severson and the other county staff that have spent a long time on this journey with me and helping me along the way. And thank you to Joe for hanging in there with us and just following us along on this journey and staying steadfast. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's got a half-hour little speech too.
So the good thing is I'm a pretty busy man. So there was a point where I finally made up my mind mentally. I just had to just leave it. If it ever happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. Yes, I would have been out some money, but I knew that going in. I can't say enough about the staff. I mean, you guys are blessed with who you got working for you all the way around. And I remember Heidi called me in. Her and Pete called me in at one point, said, "You want to continue this or what?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I mean, it wasn't really that painful for me. It was painful for your staff. That's what I worried about. But anytime I think, I can take a shot at them, I guess the federal government and the state that you're working with them, it's not too quick. I mean, things don't move along too quickly. And I know that. And luckily, having the Mayowood Stone Barn, I have a history of working with SHPO and some of these other organizations. I'll never forget we toured the one time we went inside, and it is in terrible shape on the inside. It's full of mold, and the roof is shot. So we mitigated that as much as we possibly could, but I don't think it did any good. I had Merit Roofing go out and look at it, and they spent like literally maybe 5 minutes and just said it's shot completely. So we have a lot of work to do there. The bones of the property we can keep, but one time when we went through with SHPO, we walked out and they were like, you don't seem to say anything. And I said, I'm not going to say anything because I didn't want to commit to anything to them because I don't know that. I mean, I got to take contractor in there and see what's safe. I also need to bring it up to code. I mean, honestly, if I put on about another 40 pounds, I won't get upstairs. I mean, I'm not kidding you. The stairwell is like here, and I don't know, winter's here, and I might put another 40 on. I don't know. So it's unbelievable. But I just can't speak enough about the staff itself. But I really have written it off my mind because I just didn't know if it would ever happen. And a lot of people think I've had it. So thanks to the Post Bulletin, because they've kept a little bit up on what's going on. But I've had people tell me, when are you going to do something? I said, I don't have it.
Not up to me.
And then I had several people down on the Zumbro calling me about Fisherman's Inn. So that was another whole story, which I basically had nothing to do with, kind of. But thank you for this opportunity. I will not let you down. And I have no idea exactly what I'm going to do with the property, but there's a good chance I'm going to live there. I'm a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a Mayo historian, and I've studied and read about every book about Mayo ever. That's the reason I ended up with Charlie's Farm, and the Sisters of St. Francis is another one. That those leaders in our community have really, really intrigued me. So I always think of that, even over at the Stone Barn. We've held it to where it needed to be, the way it would make the Mayos proud of what we've done there. And I plan on doing the same thing there. And I've been working with Joe Mayo across the street. Dr. Joe Mayo bought that property across the street now from his own family. And so we're working with them also to coordinate things like the well and other things. So, yeah, it's exciting, and it'll be fun. The only thing I'm in fear of is expense. So that's the other thing I want to talk to the county board about. Kidding. You have enough into this whole thing, but I appreciate your patience. But more than anything, thank you to the staff. Just first class all the way around. I felt so bad for them. I really did. Through this entire process because they had so much time.
We appreciate your patience and your perseverance.
Yeah.
And this is like the first time we've ever had trouble with the state.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for everything. And thanks for the award. Appreciate it.
We'll just adjourn, not officially, but for a little while, and go out and congratulate people, thank people, enjoy some refreshments, and we'll meet back here in 20 minutes or so.
Where's the gavel? I thought we were gonna have a gavel.
Oh, do board and
ordered
committee
one.
before Sheila gets back. Do board and committee.
Well, I guess if we
They
don't have a
disappeared.
gavel, it's time to
They
go.
actually did disappear.
It's time to go.
I mean,
Hey, Joe.
No gavel?
Let's do board and
no,
committee
it really
before
did
Sheila gets back.
disappear. I thought it was just in a box.
Cool.
That's so weird.
All right.
Like,
Hello, Sheila.
Sheila!
Oh, leave her out there. We'll do board and
Hey,
committee
no,
reports.
board and committee reports.
Okay.
Probably doesn't
Do
have
it.
anything
Do it
to
before she
report.
gets back.
Oh, yeah.
Greg and her aren't here. Shit. I'm sure they won't have anything to
Here.
say.
Greg's here.
I have no report.
Commissioner Flynn?
Nope, go, keep going.
No.
No.
No. Okay.
Motion to
All right.
adjourn.
No, no, no.
Damn
you
it.
know, I have to give my quote.
Okay.
Okay.
Hurry.
You have to indulge me. So this is Jack London's credo. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than be a sleepy and permanent planet.
That's my feeling too.
Yeah.
The function of humans is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time.
That's good.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Hi.